Good morning, Anarchy Man. How are y'all doing? It is about 10 o'clock and it's 70. No, wait a minute. It's supposed to get up around 80 something with a real feel of 90.
Ew.
So, yeah, it's in the humidity. It's 74 now. It's awful. Oh my god, humidity alone. Anyway, we are going to look at Legacy of Lies. It is the lies that every war, from the Revolutionary War or Vietnam War forward, were based on, and the planned outcomes that came to fruition. So, let's start with the Revolutionary War. Now, we've talked about how the Rothschilds got control of the Bank of England various times. A cat is just making everybody crazy. In a nutshell, they said that England was losing to France. In a rush, people panicked and they sold off all their English bonds, kind of like American bonds. And Hampshire Rothschild bought them up, pennies on a dollar. Dirt cheap. That's how he got control of the Bank of England and repeated that throughout Europe. Now, when the colonists decided that they no longer wanted to be under a king, they wanted to be their own entity. The King of England and the Rothschilds were not going to have it. Why would they care? Well, simple, because up until then, 1776, the Rothschilds were funding, for the most, the colonies. They were covering the cost of harvesting tea, sending tea there, and any loans they got, they had to get through Rothschild Bank. And the plot thickens. Well, eventually, the colonists, like I said, got sick of this nonsense and said, you know what, not only do we not want the king, but we're going to reject England, we're going to reject her tea and her taxes. They threw the tea in the harbor of Boston. And let's see, let's jump forward a few years. France won, France lost. England won in France. However, they lost to the colonies. How? Well, here's the deal. France helped the colonists. In return, they got Louisiana. Kind of an interesting trade-off there. Now, 20, 30 years later, Civil War happened. Well, let's look at this. This was the first time America actually had a national debt paid off. They had paid that debt off. Now, it shared a problem with Europe. It's the Rothschild family banks wanted to dominate America, which was growing ever so much. I mean, it grew like 16 territories between Revolutionary War and the Civil War. And it was still expanding westward. They wanted a piece of that pie. And they promised the northern states that they could become a colony again and rejoin England. They would get a bigger cut of the pie, of the money being made in the South from their cotton fields. Cotton can't grow in the North. It can only grow in the South. The heat, the humidity are perfect for cotton to grow. Not to pick it, but to grow it. They had southern plantation owners were using northern companies to spin the cotton out. See, it's not as simple as you pull cotton off a plant and voila, you got a t-shirt. No. You gotta spin it out, you gotta clean it, and all this other stuff. And the northern states were doing that. But they wanted a bigger cut. Because they seen how the southern plantations were living. They were living pretty damn good. Considering that they weren't exactly the wealthiest people on earth. They were doing pretty good. They had slaves that worked the plantation, which is why they were living as good as they were. Because they didn't have to pay hired help. They had slaves. And eventually, enough was enough. Now, let's move on to World War I. Germany attacked a luxury liner, the Lusitania. That's what everybody was told. Now, what we weren't told was that the United States government loaded military-grade weapons in what's called the hull of the ship. Germany knew this. They knew it. They knew where the ship was going to go, and they warned them, if you sail into this area, we will sink this. Now, let's look a little deeper. It wasn't just about Germany, wanting more land. It was about the fact they were colonizing areas that Britain wanted for themselves. That was the main thing. But Germany dared want to expand. They already had their section of Auspice now. Oh God, there's an area that borders France and Germany. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me right now, but they wanted that whole area. If France didn't want them in, they did not want Germany into France at all. Well, eventually, World War I happened, and while World War I was happening, England was occupying former German colonies. They were stealing colonies while there was a world war raging. Now, there's other aspects here that I'm not going to get into right now because it's hot. It's very hot here. And we already know that toward the end of World War I, that 4 dynastic houses fell. That was another desire of Rothschild families, banks. Because as long as the dynastic houses did not exist, nobody could oppose them in the financial domination of the world. That's what they wanted, and they eventually did get it. Now, while World War I was raging on, a Sir Arthur Balfour and a Rothschild relative signed what was called the Balfour Declaration. What that did is it stole land from Palestine. We now know it's Israel. Now we can get into World War II in 1 second, because it was about 20 or 60 years later some ocean explorers found the carnage of the Lusitania. And guess what they found in the hull? The weapons that Germans said were there. How you like that one? Now, World War II, 20 years later, happened, and yeah. While people were fighting, a lot of the European countries did not want another war. They were willing to look past the aggression of Germany and Italy. They even looked past the Russian aggression. in which they were then. Here's the deal. Eventually, Hitler came to power. How? He was broke. He was a nobody from Austria. How did somebody who didn't even finish school become one of the most powerful and controversial people in history? The Illuminati backers. His grandfather or great grandfather, I can't remember which one it was born to a Rothschild member. So he's a Rothschild bastard descendant. However, he ended up getting enough money through the Rothschilds to overtake Germany. He began to rebuild the military. That was the first thing that had to happen. It had to happen. Now, history books makes it look like Germany drove into Austria, annexed it. No. According to Kitty Worthman, a lady that grew up in Austria during this time, the adults in Austria that had a 50% unemployment rate seen the improving quality of life in Germany. They had a cute little Volkswagen Beetles they were driving. They were living nice. They were living pretty well. And Austria wasn't. So the adults voted to have Austria rejoin Germany. Huge mistake. Now, we come into the following to this. The Jewish residents were told they could leave Germany and migrate to Israel. Yeah, he was perfectly fine to let them just pack their stuff and go. Get out. But his money masters, who were Jewish also, were not so happy about that. Why is that important? Because they are the ones that financed every aspect of both sides of World War II. Every brick, every bag of mortar, everything that was built, every concentration camp that was used, every mass furnaces for mass amounts of bodies, they funded the building of. This was a terrible plight on Germany. And they even stood back while their bankers, who were Jewish, tried to sell Jewish brethren $3 a head. Eventually, some countries did take them in. You know, what can you do? You're between a rock and a hard place, really. Anyway, over the years, it has come to light that not only did the Rothschild family and their banks they own help fund World War II, but companies like IBM, Coca-Cola, they created Fanta to be sold there. Standard Oil and Gas, owned by the Rockefeller family out of New Jersey. Preston Bush, father of George H.W. Bush, or so we're told, helped provide supplies like tires. J.P. Morgan Financial House as well. And the list just goes on and on. Now, let's go on to Korea and Vietnam. These two conflicts were both started based on lies. The lie that people were told, in essence, communism, this big bad communism, was going to jump across the Bering Sea and infect America. Well, the joke was on the people in America at the time, because there was already communists working in the government. As a matter of fact, the majority of everyone that was recommended to work in very high positions were not. The House and Senate was not allowed to ask them about the communist beliefs or their memberships. They weren't allowed to. Vietnam started, now this is very personal to me, was started on the line in the Tonkin Gulf. There was a naval ship there when the motors went out. But when the motor went out, it made such noise. It sounded like they'd been hit. So a message goes over to Washington, we've been hit. Then a few minutes later, they realized that they had not been hit. They were not under fire. That message went out, and that's when it got ignored. Millions of folks were killed in that war based on a lie. And heroin also made its way here, courtesy of dead soldiers, the coffins. Yep. You disgusted yet? You will be. Now, the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, I honestly do not remember, because I was just a kid when this happened, what specifically sparked that round. But we were told that we were going to stay neutral. We were going to be neutral. I remember my dad said, we will be neutral the day hell freezes over. And sure enough, he was right. It came out in the late 80s that not only did we fund Iraq, we funded Iran. However, they were very partial to Iraq because they provided Iraq with nerve gases. This brings us to Desert Storm. Now, this happened during my senior year of high school. So I remember some stuff about it, not a whole lot. There was this lady who was supposed to be a nurse in the Kuwaiti hospital. Said Iraqi soldiers took over 600 babies out of incubators, threw them to the ground, and killed them. No, that never happened. Later came to light that Saddam Hussein had not only used nerve gas on Iranians, but he also used it on his own people. Nobody ever asked where he got the nerve gas from. No one asked. It never crossed their minds to question that. I never understood. And CNN pulled one of the biggest hoaxes. And again, nobody ever questioned. There was no questioning this. Why? I don't know. Now let's move on to the next hoax they perpetrated. 9/11. This has got to be the biggest scam of all. These lying bastards. The Twin Towers, New York City, was built in the late 60s, early 70s, and they stood for a very long time. 1 week prior to them being taken down, Larry Silverstein bought them and insured them for billions of dollars. I don't remember the exact amount. I really don't. Now we have the One World building. Voila. Here's a lie. We were told that some bastard in Afghanistan orchestrated this with nothing but a satellite phone and the internet. Well, okay, we weren't told that part until way later. The government pulled this off, for years. Nobody has ever batted an eye at the rise of opioids for the big pharma. nobody had batted an eye at how it contributed to the addiction in this country. No way. I guess if you got a population that's strung out, they can't question anything. Because as more people started questioning things from that day, more and more people got addicted to opioids. Here we go. Here's more. Now, we're supposed to believe these terrorists, most of them were from Saudi Arabia, trained in Afghanistan. Israel had nothing to do with it. They were the innocent little lambs. Yeah, right. These terrorists from Saudi Arabia did this. Why are we still doing business with Saudi Arabia if they did it, if they were behind it? See, logic says that when a country attacks another one, they get brought to their knees. You don't do business with them. Here's where the plot thickens. There are 28 pages that have never been released and never will be in our lifetime that tells who was actually behind it. And it's not what we've been told. Now, there you have it. Legacy of Lies. Many of our loved ones have died for what? Oil, opium, greed. That's it. That is the legacy of lies that we have to live with. So, now you can see why I did not do this video yesterday, Memorial Day, because I guess, having known so many people who served in Korea and Vietnam, I could not do it. So, I'm going to close this video. I'm going to leave you a link to the full written part of it. And I will see you guys later.